Hello, and welcome to our live broadcast today with health and fitness coach Heather Keats. So lots of you know that Be the Jellyfish is a wellbeing company that helps support the social and emotional wellbeing of children, but we often get asked by parents, what can they do to help their wellbeing? And as it was Mother's Day, we thought it'd be quite nice to have an expert come in and talk to you about that. Now, earlier last week, I asked if anyone had any questions, and I was inboxed a few. So we're going to ask Heather those questions. But before we do that, it'd be nice to hear from Heather and a little bit about what she does and how she can help you today. So over to you, Heather.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah, and thank you for having me here. It's nice to be called an expert.
Well, it's what you are.
So I've actually been working with mothers and I suppose families. So you might have a few fathers watching as well. But I've been working with families for nearly 20 years. So I was a health visitor to begin with and a maternity nurse. I've worked with teenage parents. And then when I had my own children, I decided to retrain as a personal trainer, which is something I'd always wanted to do. And having children myself, I knew that I wanted something that would fit in with them and also would still help keep me active, but also support women in terms of their health and well-being, which is something I've always loved doing. I think as mothers and fathers, we have such huge potential to impact on the people around us, and especially that next generation coming through, so that if we can kind of nail it a little bit or start looking after ourselves better, not only is that impacting on us, but it's also impacting on that next generation of parents. And so it goes on and on and on. So it's really exciting work for me.
Oh, brilliant.
And so the work that I do now, obviously everything's moved online. So I'm a personal trainer. I do that outdoors or online. I used to run face-to-face classes, and that will happen again, hopefully, but those have all moved online. So I have a membership, an online membership of fitness classes once a week, and lots of other kind of support. My work is taking me more into the sustainability angle as well, to supporting women to live more sustainably, to help look after our planet. So the membership also includes a little bit of work about sustainable lifestyles as well, and building some of that in too.
Exciting. And you mentioned mums, but obviously all of these activities can be done by dads as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Okay, well, how do you feel about if we launch straight into some of these questions, because we do have a few? Is that
yes,
good?
Let's go for it. And I've got some notes, so forgive me if it looks like I'm reading sometimes. It's because I am. I don't want to miss anything out.
Brilliant. Okay, right. Well, first one. Basically, how can I make time for exercise? Obviously, parents have so much to do, particularly now in the lockdown with the homeschooling and working from home, and finding time to do exercise on top of everything else is really difficult. What would you recommend for that?
So there's a few things here. First of all, just want to acknowledge that, because every time I ask a parent, like, what is it that's stopping you from living that healthier life that you really want to lead, the number one reason is lack of time, and the next one is lack of energy, and those two really kind of go hand in hand as well. My first question to you would be, if I were to gift you another 2 hours in your day, would you spend an hour of that exercising every day? Probably not. I would imagine you'll fill that time with something else. And the reason I say that isn't to make you feel guilty or anything like that, but just to recognize that we will fill the hours in our day with all the superfluous stuff of life. It is never going to get less busy unless you make it so. You know, you deliberately work on taking things out that are actually unnecessary in your life, ditching them or delegating them. Some things we can't ditch or delegate. We have to look after our children and feed ourselves and everything. But there are probably things in your life that you are wasting time on. I think social media that we're here using right now is one of those things. You know, it can be that real rabbit hole. But there's lots of other things, just things like tidying up. You know, my house is mostly messy most of the time, but I've prioritized other things over that, including, you know, trying to cook food from scratch, so we've got healthier meals, and exercise, and also rest as well. So asking yourself where you can take things out, what you need to do less of, what you can let go of to create more space and time. And ultimately, it is just about priorities. obviously we're all in different, we've all got different things going on, and we've all got different amounts of business. Some people are working full time, some people are single parents, and that's really challenging. But wherever you are, it will be about your priorities, and recognizing that by moving more and by eating better, you will actually gain energy, which in return kind of gains you time, because you're much more efficient with what you can do. I think is really key to that as well. I think one of the things.
Sorry, I was going to say priorities, because when that question came through, the first thing that popped into my head was, again, priorities. And parents will, by nature, they're selfless. And having that, it almost seems like a selfish act to put some time that you could be spending on home and on children for your own fitness and well-being.
Definitely. And I think that's a really key part of it, is recognizing that might be a problem for you. Also recognizing, though, that when we don't do it, we end up being resentful. We can end up being resentful. We can end up being more snappy with people because we're just tired all the time, or, feeling fed up with never taking time out for ourselves. So it is that kind of switching that, eating better or exercising more, even if that's just going out for a walk on your own, so you're not trailed around by a toddler that, slows you down, being able to go for a walk on your own. Starting to see that as a way of treating yourself, and also, improving things for the whole family. As I said at the beginning, like, we're such role models for our kids. If we're not moving, if we're not exercising, if we're not eating healthily, then they're not learning that from us. We might be telling them to do it, or school might be, but we're their best role models. So making it a real priority because of that, without all the guilt, which is hard at first, but it does come. It gets easier the more you do it.
Lovely.
And I think another key thing for us parents as well is really looking at, and for anybody actually, really looking at ways to build in movement into your everyday. So what commutes are you doing? If that's to work or to school, or even just to the shop, that you can definitely do by foot or on the bike. And even things like meetings, if you've got a phone call, like say you have a phone call with your mum every week or whatever, because you don't get to see her anymore, just sticking the headphones in. It doesn't have to be on Zoom. Stick in the headphones and take a walk while you're doing that. And it's so lovely to do that. And even some meetings can be done like that, depending on, your colleagues and things, but some meetings can be done like that as well. So really getting a bit clever about how you fit more movement into your day, so it doesn't feel like we're having to take time out, especially for exercise in the beginning, can be a key way too.
Okay, it's lovely. So allow themselves permission to do exercise. They're not being selfish, and it's actually for the greater. The greater good.
Absolutely, 100% for the greater good.
You mentioned healthy eating there, so that actually leads quite nicely into another question came in. Actually, this one's from my sister, and basically she was saying that she literally can't stop eating now that she's home all the time with the children. She's grazing all the time, and yet doesn't matter what she eats, she never feels full. And yet she must be overrunning her calorie intake, but she's just never feeling satisfied with what she's eating. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's probably a few parts to this, and if you wanted to get really serious about this, I'd recommend seeing a nutritional therapist, which of course I'm not. I'm a personal trainer, but nutrition comes as part of that training, and also part of my kind of passion and interest anyway. But there's a few parts to untangle there. The first thing is quite simply, like you said, looking at what your sister's actually eating. And can I say, this won't be just you, this won't be just her, particularly in lockdown. We have all been snacking more, and there's a number of reasons for that, and I'll go into that in just a moment. But one of the key things really is to look at what you're eating, and starting with that kind of first meal of the day, whenever you break your fast and have breakfast, making sure that those meal times are full of fiber, getting those kind of whole grains and whole foods, whole vegetables in there. And full of protein as well. I think sometimes we can lack in protein and kind of tend to overdo it on the carbs. And what that does is it just sends us on this kind of blood sugar roller coaster, where we're constantly depleted of sugar, and the insulin, we get a high in sugar, insulin comes out, mops it up, we get into a depletion, and we start craving foods throughout the day, kind of up and down throughout the day. So really looking at those meals and making them much better. And part of the membership, I always invite people to do a food diary, because I think that's a really helpful way to start actually really identifying what we're eating, and how often and how much. But also wrapped up in that is what else is going on, and what's the real reason for the snacking. Sometimes it might be genuine hunger, and that's when you need to look at the meals, what else you're having. Are you getting enough fibre, keeping you full for longer? Most of the time, especially if it's increased during lockdown, or nothing else has changed but the snacking has gone up, there'll be some other reason for it. So I teach a nice kind of little simple thing that you can start to do. So when you start to crave some snacks or reach for the snacks, or feeling like I only ate a half an hour ago and here I am going for it again, just try and push pause. All of this is linked very strongly to mindfulness, so just trying to push pause for a moment. And you can actually use your hand to kind of tune into your body, or you can just do it mentally if you want to. But just place a hand on your head and just ask yourself, am I feeling stressed? Is this stress that's leading me to reach for something high fatty, high sugar? That's often linked with stress. Placing your hands over your eyes. Am I just tired? Have I not had enough sleep? Have I been on the go all day? Putting your hand on your throat. Am I feeling thirsty? Do I just need a drink of water? Putting your hand on your heart. Am I feeling some deep emotions at the moment that I'm not actually letting myself feel fully? They're kind of bubbling away under the surface. So anxiety at the moment is so huge with everything that's going on. So am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling just bored, plain bored, or lonely? We can be living with people. We can have a family of people, quite noisy people around us, but we can still feel lonely because we're so disconnected at the moment. So looking at that, am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling tired? Am I actually just thirsty? Am I feeling some other emotion that's going on that's leading me to move towards the snacks? And then finally, putting your hand on your belly. Am I actually hungry? And then with each of those,
I like that, like a tiered 5-step to before you reach for that snack. And it's so easy now with the kitchen just being there, isn't it, to just open the cupboard and grab something. But being a bit mindful about it. And that's the kind of thing we would teach children as well when they're reacting to situations. We'd say, think about what can you see, what can you feel, what can you. So just doing it in a structured way. That's a really good tip.
Exactly. And then once you understand a bit more about why you're reaching for that snack, then you can mitigate it. So if you're feeling stressed, you'd go and do something that's going to help you relieve stress in a different way, in a much more healthy way, taking a walk, phoning a friend, whatever. If you're feeling tired, taking a rest, or having some caffeine. If you've got to keep going, having some caffeine. So looking at what the real reason is behind that. And this takes time, because we tend to have built habit around snacking. And so you've then got to break down that habit as well and start creating new habits out of that.
And perhaps recognizing as well what hunger is.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of us, this brain is so strong, isn't it? And you think you're hungry, but you're not.
No. Chances are we're all getting enough calories one way or another. Not many of, unless, if you're a new mum and you're breastfeeding, or if you're super busy and you've not even made time for lunch, then you might actually need some food. But that's when you've got to look at the food itself and the meals itself and say, okay, how can I make this better? How can I make this work for me so that I stay fuller for longer and have enough energy to get through the day?
Lovely. Well, I think that's a good takeaway, not just for her, but for other people who will watch this. Taking those 5 steps, and maybe just doing a few days of a food diary to see if they might be missing, because very often cravings, if I'm right, they come from a lack of not getting something as well, not just the spiking in sugar, but your body is needing something.
Yeah, that's right. So sometimes exactly that. And so and that's where a nutritional therapist would come in, because they'd be able to really help you identify what that is. And just a final point on that is sleep as well. Getting enough sleep and rest is key to getting your blood sugar levels stable, and those blood sugar levels are key to managing cravings throughout the day. So sleep is super important.
Lovely, thank you. Right, okay, last sort of big question. Can you recommend a quick, easy and effective morning ritual? So it's been a lot on social media recently about these morning rituals. People, I suppose, to break the day up during the lockdown, thinking about how can they get the most of their day and start their day in a really positive way, but with all the pressures of also having, home life, work life, children, everything in the pot. So quick, easy, definitely. And effective.
Well, what I thought I'd do for this question is basically take you through what my morning routine is. But before that, I want to reiterate again that your sleep is the first point in your morning routine. So if you're not going to, if you get the kids to bed and they finally go to bed about 8, 7:30, and then you're staying up and you watch a movie and then you kind of potter about and stay up till 11 or midnight, some people, because it's this is our only time we get to ourselves is the evening. If you're one of those people that's staying up late just to claim a little bit of time for yourself, chance of you creating a decent morning routine before the rest of the household wakes up are very slim. So the first thing you need to prioritize is going to bed earlier. Which might not be relevant. I'm really great at going to bed early. I was in bed by 8:30 last night, but some people aren't. So going to bed earlier is the key, the first point in a morning routine. Then you're starting to get into a kind of a natural space of being able to wake up earlier. And I think as parents, a good morning routine involves being in a quiet space before the rest of the household is up and awake. Fair enough if they're a bit older and they're kind of pottering about in their rooms and stuff like that, and you can go downstairs and create that quiet space. But trying to have a morning routine when the kids are up, for me anyway, it just doesn't work. So the first thing I try and do when I wake up, or when I suddenly realise that I've kind of woken up and I've already started going into the thoughts of the day, is just spend just a few moments being mindful and just recognising that this is a new day. Here I am. Aren't I lucky to be here? And sometimes I'll do that lying in my bed, or sometimes I'll, when I put my feet on the floor, that will be the point where I kind of just hang on, let me just stay here for a moment and notice this is a new morning, and I can deal with this day however I want to deal with it. And then I'll get up and brush my teeth or whatever. I'll go and make a lemon and hot water, or lemon and ginger and hot water. So one of the things that's really important for digestion and in terms of snacking and all that kind of stuff as well, is setting our guts up to be as healthy as we can. And I can recommend a nutritional therapist that could help with that if anybody's into gut health. And so one of the ways to do that is a lemon and hot water. It helps set up a nice balance in the gut before the day begins. And then I'll usually listen to a meditation. I use the free Insight Timer app, which is amazing. Loads of meditations on there, just for 5 or 10 minutes. I'll maybe do a bit of journaling as part of that. I'll have a little stretch. If it's one of those days where I don't have to be up and out, then I'll do a sort of 15, 30-minute workout. That doesn't happen all the time, by the way. But, that's part of that morning routine. And then that's probably about 45 minutes. So that doesn't always fit in. Yeah. And sometimes it'll just be that 15 minutes of a cup of warm hot water and lemon, a meditation and a bit of a stretch, and then the kids are up and my day is off with them. So
but you still allowed yourself 15 minutes for yourself.
Definitely.
Sometimes that can be so powerful, can't it? Just having that moment, like you said, with no demands on you from anywhere. Is that.
And just that time to allow your brain to kick into gear, to set yourself up for the day in terms of what you want to get out of that day. Not all the things you want to do with the day, but just how you want to feel that day. And for me as an introvert, it's particularly important because in lockdown, where there's no escape from the children and the family, then it really has been kind of a lifesaver as setting up that morning routine. So I do it all the time now.
And you mentioned journaling there. So would that be like list making, or just being what sort of thing?
So there's obviously lots of different journal prompts that you can use, and you can even buy journals that have the journal prompts in them. So sometimes I do gratitude practice, which I know we've all heard of, but most of us have probably had a little go at it. But actually, if you kind of make that part of a regular habit, it changes. And it's really interesting. You start noticing the really tiny things about your day that you're grateful for, rather than the big stuff. I'm grateful for my health and my family, da-da-da. Start really noticing about that morning. What is it specifically or in that moment that you feel grateful for? And that can bring such a really a positive spin to the day. So gratitude practice, sometimes I do something called morning pages, which is just writing. You give yourself 3 pages to just write whatever's in your head. And once usually you can fill 1 page, and then you kind of start to struggle about, page 1.5, but forcing yourself to kind of write the next page and a half can really, you can find things deep within you that you didn't even know existed. So that's quite a therapeutic approach as well.
Lovely. Right. So those, like I say, were our 3 main questions. And I thought what might be quite nice to conclude, Heather, if it's okay with you, is 3 sort of takeaway actionable tips based on those 3 things. So perhaps 1 to do with exercise, 1 to do with eating, because they both have the effect on the energy, and then 1 to do with just having that time for yourself, that morning. Yeah, that morning ritual.
Well, it's funny that you kind of put it in those 3, because whenever I do coaching with women, usually people will come to me because they want to get fitter or healthier in some way. They want to work on their diet. But I always want people to go back to the beginning. We look at why that is, exactly what that means to you, and why that's important, and what's it going to help you do if you have more energy in your life and things like that. But as I said at the beginning, one of the first things we need to do is look at taking things out of our lives. We are chronically busy, and I think if we try and add more in without first taking things away or letting go of something, we're just going to end up, burning out. And so my first kind of pillar in the coaching that I do is rest. So my first tip around rest for anybody would be the sleep piece. So making sure you are getting enough decent quality sleep. Obviously, if you've got kids that wake you up, that's really challenging. So if that's the case for you, it does. Sometimes it might be going to bed earlier. Sometimes it might be sitting in the afternoon with a book for sort of half an hour and just sitting down before the kids get home from school. So looking at that rest and sleep piece is really key. That will impact massively on hormones, on your mental health and well-being, on your sugar cravings and what you eat throughout the day, and your energy levels. Sleep is a big, big, big piece of the puzzle. And so the next pillar is nourish. So as I said before, I think breakfast, whenever that is for you, if you do, some people do fasting, they might fast for 16 hours, so you might not have breakfast till later. Some people have breakfast very early in the morning, but whenever you have your breakfast, make that more than just cereal or toast. Really use that as an opportunity to fuel the rest of your day. So thinking about protein, thinking about veggies, maybe some healthy fats with some avocado. Make sure the carb that's in there is a complex carb, so if you can get whole grain bread or a sourdough, if you're going to have bread in there, or quinoa. For me, sometimes mornings I don't want to do all of that, and if I've got a meeting later, though, I won't be able to have a later breakfast. So it might be something like porridge made with chia seeds and grated carrot and a bit of protein shake. So I know that I'm getting a good amount of a good kind of balance and something that's going to keep me going for longer. So nourish, I think breakfast is one of the key things there. And then finally, the kind of final pillar is strengthen. So looking at the exercise piece and the movement piece. Don't try and do it alone. I think if you're wanting to start out on a new exercise plan of whatever kind, whether it's just going for a run twice a week or something a bit more substantial, don't try and do it alone. So either phone a friend, get somebody on board with you doing it alongside you, or pay for a trainer, join a gym, join a class. Don't expect to create this whole new wonderful healthy routine just by yourself. You and I met, Sarah, because we're in a business membership together. We could both do the work that we do as part of that membership, but I wouldn't do it if I wasn't part of that membership and I wasn't being held accountable, if I wasn't paying somebody else to make sure that I did this stuff. So getting support in whatever way works for you is really, really important.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much for all your advice and all your tips. That's been really helpful, and I'm sure when people catch up on this, they will also find it a really useful tool. If they have any more questions, or even if they want to join some of your online classes, because where is it that you're based, countrywide?
I'm in BS9 in Bristol, But as I say, every day I do, so I do personal training.
But they can join online classes and things, though, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's all online.
Okay,
so we could put the link below.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be perfect if you want to add your link there, or similarly, if anyone wants to message me and I can forward your details on, that would be fine again. All right. Well, thank you again, Heather, and
no worries.
all the best. Take care.
Yeah, thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.